Hello everybody, this is the Serpentine, Hyde Park in central London. Saturday the 28th of December, 3 days to go to the end of 2013, and we just thought we would try and think of something profound to say at the end of the year. We'll think of something. What would you like to say?
I don't know.
How about has anything changed since, if you can remember this time last year, has anything much changed, or it's the same gradual process just continuing gradually?
You mean for society at large, not for myself?
No, not for yourself, no.
Let us see. Is there any rise in global consciousness, mindfulness?
That's what I'm saying. I think that there probably has been. It's probably gone from sort of 1.48% of the population to 1.49 or... No, I don't know. That sounds a bit pessimistic, but it's probably just gone up a tiny bit, you know?
Yes. Well, it's progress, isn't it? Although a very, very small one, but progress.
To quote Stefan Molyneux, who we talked about last time, he was saying that he thinks it's a multi-generational change. And he thinks that the key to fixing all this is good parenting. To try and change the psychology of parents, basically. Which is becoming a lot more difficult in this kind of... where there's a need for two incomes. It's getting more and more difficult for parents to do that. But he says, you know, parents need to be at home for the first 2 to 3 years of a child's life. And what he's really doing, he's trying to boil down everything that happens subsequently to that. You know... the fact that there possibly aren't too many families where you get really well-balanced children who become well-balanced people, you know. I mean, if you put sort of the traumas of just being a child plus all the crap we're exposed to, it's probably quite difficult to have someone with a truly open mind, you know. We like to say that we're open-minded, and we probably are in comparison, but, you know, so that would be his thing. And he thinks it's a multi-generational thing, so he's probably not going to see it in his own lifetime. Which, you know, you'd like to think that he might see something in his own lifetime, but it's not always going to be that. If we did this every year, I don't think we can necessarily see lots of tangible changes. But we might just see glimmers of progress. It's probably all we can hope for.
I think so, yes. Difficult to engage people, really. Difficult to get them thinking about broader issues.
It's tough, yeah.
Very tough. Because I don't think they see society as changing or as changeable. They look around themselves and they see that everything is pretty much the same it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you know, and you know, same authorities, same institutions still there, and I think this can really, you know, give you an impression of permanence, of almost, you know, being these institutions have been they are eternal. They've always been there, and they will always be there, which is not the case because all these institutions are fairly recent, you know, and they are man-made, and they are the product of their times. So as they become more and more irrelevant and less useful, and you know, less and less fit for purpose, they will probably, you know, disappear. The way they came into existence, they will probably be driven into oblivion. So, but you know, people have a very, you know, probably narrow perception of time, and you know, they only look at what happened recently or last year, and everything seemed pretty much the same, very stable. And that's the role of the elites: ensure social stability, meaning that things remain the same all the time.
Marx, by the way, there. You were doing inverted commas when you said social stability. Actually, I was talking to a family member over Christmas. We had a very, very long talk, a kind of conversation that went into lots of different areas. And a lot of the time we were talking about my blog that I've started and recording these kind of interviews or talks. And we kind of got around to who I could be reaching and whether I had a goal. And I said, well, my goal might be that when I interact with people in everyday life, they might just have a spark of interest and go, that kind of thing. But what he said was that we agreed, without wanting to sound too patronising, that the thinkers in the general public could be 10 to 20%
That will already be a very encouraging figure. I always used to think that it's 4%.
Okay.
But I don't have any obviously evidence to back this up. It's just my feeling. Yeah. But your figure is certainly more encouraging.
Yeah. Okay.
So let's keep yours.
Yeah.
To end the year on a positive note.
Yeah. But what he was saying we concluded in the end I probably wasn't going to reach 80% or 85%, and he said. I concluded in the end that my goal or my mission was just to engage the people who can think but don't know anything beyond the mainstream. And he made some very good points actually. It made me think a lot. He was saying that everything you hear, all this bullshit about anti-terrorism laws to protect people, and all these things, screening at airports to protect people, is probably right. The 80% probably do need that protection, because in their mental process they kind of think that they need, daddy, big brother if you like, or big daddy. Big Daddy is the name of a wrestler from England 30 years ago, so that wasn't the best one to use. Father,
Or Sugar Daddy, but that's yet another.
So he was saying that there's this sort of 80% figure, or whatever, 90%, and actually the government propaganda actually suits them, and what's on TV suits them generally. So in fact, in a way, corporate reassures them. Yeah, corporate news is actually satisfying the customer, essentially, satisfying most of their customers.
Yeah.
And I don't know what we can take from that, really. So that's not very positive. But no, I always like it when someone makes me think, and do you think? Actually, I can ask you. Do you think any of your views have changed since last year, if you can remember, or anything has happened this year that's? Because I do find that fundamentally the things that I discovered, I'm so sure about them that, even though I'm very open to change, but I do find that my view and my knowledge is evolving. So if I have a conversation with someone and they bring up something like that, like we did on our talk as well, I'm always tweaking what I think, so that's why I said on my blog I'm not the best person to follow, because if you're just expecting someone who's going to say exactly the same thing all the time, then it's probably not me. But within that there are fundamentals that I think I'm fairly sure.
I agree with you, it's the same with me, although if we try to remain open-minded, obviously our knowledge and our view of the world will evolve as more knowledge circulates and reaches us and other people. Society is never static, is in continual change and transformation, and despite these forces that they try to keep a lead on change and keep the status quo and give this false idea of permanence, in institutions and other things. We know that this is not the case. What is really keeping society going and what is giving this false idea of permanence, I think, is cheap oil, and energy that society runs on. And I think that only when that paradigm will really start, the peak oil and the fact that we can't go on forever, burning fossil fuels, that we start to change really the reality, our everyday reality, and that in turn will start really to bring about a landslide in change. I don't know, maybe people will just take pitchforks and knives and rifles, and there will be a bloodbath. But hopefully, if there's going to be a change and a shift in consciousness, that's the point where it will happen. I think it's going to be very difficult to expect any major change as long as we can consume, burn, waste, and steal other countries' resources and have a very or relatively good standard of living.